Thank you and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Pleasure to be interacting with all of you and look forward to this interesting session. I think Sameer highlighted quite a few interesting points with respect to financing and how, gave some good examples of how various companies are, really driving this change towards sustainability. Clearly, it's a very, very long journey. And India's role at a global level is extremely critical. We are one of the third largest, we are the third largest emitters. And going forward, given our growth ambitions and the need for energy going forward to fuel that growth, it becomes very important what kind of a path we take towards the overall, growth that we have, and sustainability has to be at the front and center of it. From the government side, I think we've seen a lot of action with respect to them wanting to clearly accelerate focus on sustainability. At the same time, I think there are clear concerns with respect to balancing growth and sustainability together. So we've seen a whole host of actions from the government side over the last 8 to 10 years, I would say. Renewables, I think, has been in the thick of things for the last many years, and we've seen a fairly large transition. We've seen sharp reduction in costs. Along with that, we've seen a lot of government and as well as regulatory activity with respect to the EVs and the entire ecosystem there. On the packaging front, again, with EPR, we've seen a whole host of, evolution of regulations, which again, drive us towards sustainability. And of late, we are also seeing some efforts to kind of, ensure capital availability in this space is abundant, though, there is a long journey and the numbers that are spoken about are in trillions of dollars globally. And even in India, as per our estimates, I think even if we have to do a moderate transition to 2030, we are looking at numbers close to 20 trillion rupees for the next 6 to 7 years. So we are talking of a fairly large numbers going forward too. And I think at the center of it all, I think renewables is one of the most critical and key area. And as we look at various other options to drive sustainability and decarbonization. So renewable comes front and center. Along with that, I think the way we are looking at it is going forward, you will see an important role for carbon capture as well as hydrogen, but that may be a bit more in the long term because scalability, pricing related concerns continue to remain. Renewables, at least we have scaled up, and I think pricing is lesser of a concern, though there are a whole host of other challenges of being able to provide round-the-clock power, availability of feedstock as far as the biomass related areas are concerned, wind intermittency, which is again kind of hurting. Most of the wind plants have not been able to perform the way they were planned at P90 levels. So we are seeing some challenges there. Storage costs continue to remain high. Pump storage is again a very popular item, but availability of all of that remains a challenge. Then grid interconnectivity, technology-related challenges also remain, quite prominent. So with this as a backdrop, I would now move into the panel discussion and understand from the practitioners how they are seeing the overall transition space and potentially, what are the steps that can be taken and what is it that, we can do to accelerate this overall transition that we are seeing going forward. So first, Ram, looking at it from a manufacturer's perspective, and I know your organization has been one of the first movers or early adopters in this space. So just wanted to understand your views on the overall decarbonization journey within your organization, and at a larger note, how you are seeing decarbonization to really play out on the manufacturing side.
Sure. I think you very clearly, you hit the nail on the head when you said renewable energy is the biggest driver of decarbonization. I think the message is being lost a little bit in the discussion about carbon markets and all such. We've forgotten that the first driver should always be to substitute high carbon energy with low carbon energy. That's the first step. And the other thing that really worked in our favor. So at Godrej, we are at about 55% renewable energy as a group. We'll be at 70% by 2025. A lot of people ask me why not 100%. And the answer actually lies in some of the things we're going to be discussing in this panel in terms of the regulatory and technology challenges that really exist. But we did get lucky in a sense because our thermal to electrical requirements is about 70 to 30. So thermal energy was fairly easy to solve from a renewable perspective because India is blessed with an abundance of biomass from agri-waste. So we were able to convert almost all of our thermal energy requirements to using briquettes and various other forms of biomass. And we've now actually installed at 3 of our largest facilities cogeneration systems. We're using biomass not just to generate thermal energy, but also for electrical. So in fact, if you be one of our businesses, which is the oil palm business, which is largely in Andhra and Tamil Nadu, we have a plantation of our own. It runs on 99.7% renewable energy. The 0.3 is just some small connected load we have. It's an entirely circular business where the palm oil is extracted from the fruit and then the palm fruit bunches then recycled to make briquettes, which then power the cogeneration system. So we've been lucky in the sense that our requirements matched with the availabilities that were available, but we also invested very heavily in our own wind turbines, in solar, in all forms. So we are very technology agnostic. We don't care what form of renewable energy it is. Our job is basically to ensure that we incorporate more green energy into our mix, which is where one of the problems really lies in the future, which is that we've sort of hit a ceiling. And we've hit a place where we're not able to overcome certain regulatory hurdles and we're not able to overcome certain technology challenges which will really accelerate to 100% renewable future that we really envision. Having said that, there are still lots of technologies which are being piloted at our own facilities. We were talking about hydrogen earlier, so green hydrogen is a very, very important aspect for us, not just as a storage, but also as an input. So there are quite a few things that we are looking at, but we really right now are at a stage where our dependencies on the external ecosystem is a lot more. So I'm very keen to hear from my fellow co-panelists how they can help me solve this particular problem.
Hello, yeah. Thanks, Ram. I'm great to hear your views. Now I'll move on to Mr. Sharma. Maybe, again, you are also from one of those, relatively hard to abate sectors. And also, you do touch the agri space also. I just wanted your experiences in terms of, how the journey will be for some of the spaces that you are present in, and how do you see it really panning out? And on a larger note, there are also concerns with respect to, managing short-term returns versus, long-term sustainability payouts. So if you could just throw some light on that, it will be useful.
Thanks, Rahul. I think I echo what Ram has already initiated and set the tone for this panel discussion. I think renewable energy is something which has to be looked by not only every business, but at individual level also, how much best we are contributing in terms of reducing our carbon footprint. So with that, a little bit of background about my company, first of all, is we are into basically 3 verticals. The very first one is agri-rural business, which takes care of the agri inputs and nutrients and other chemicals. And the second one is chlor-vinyl business, which takes care of this chlor-alkali business mainly, and PVC and other allied products. And the third one is other value-added products, which includes Fenesta business, which is UPVC doors and windows. So if you talk about this sustainability, our company is almost 130 plus years old with the heritage in place. And the very first thing which comes to my mind is to share is that sustainability is something which is part of our inception of the plants. When these were set up way back almost 50 to 60 years back, all the byproducts which are getting produced at the site, say our one of the largest chemical facility which is at Kota, the byproducts which are getting produced out of various products like calcium carbide, there is a sludge which gets utilized for making cement, and then the fly ash which is from the captive power plant is also utilized for manufacturing cement. So what I want to point out here is that most of the products are designed in such a way that these are in terms of circularity ensures that no waste is getting generated at the very first place. Then the second business which I was talking about, the vertical, the sugar, where the biomass is getting utilized not only for generating power captively, which is getting utilized in the plants, but also at the same time the additional power is sent back or sold to the state grid also, which is again renewable energy, or what we term it as non-fossil fuel based energy. Going forward in the same plant itself, now we have come up in last 4 years time, the alcohol production also, which is generated from, which is produced from one of the waste, which is molasses. So this alcohol is ultimately going to blend with, it is going for blending with petrol under the National Petrol Blending Program. So that also contributes in terms of indirectly GHG emission reduction to the tune of almost 6 lakhs tons of CO2 annually. So that's something in terms of the renewable. In terms of our overall group, we are at 42% direct green energy right now, and in the way forward, we have already come up with our 50 megawatt renewable hybrid plant at our Bharuch facility, which is in Gujarat. And that's what I was talking about this. We also heard about green hydrogen. So that way, a part of the hydrogen which we are producing right now is already a green hydrogen because of this substitution of our existing power with renewable energy in this financial year. And in the times to come, we also have endeavor in terms of increasing our biomass in our boilers that we use. In sugar, it is 100% coal, bagasse-fired boilers, but in our coal-fired boilers, all attempts are being made in terms of increasing our this biomass to the tune of some 10 to 15%, and the recently installed boiler is having a capacity of almost 40% biomass. So I think the design is done in such a way that the renewable or the non-fossil fuel is part of the design stage, so that when we are talking about our energy mix over the year, the energy mix, the greening part is going to increase. That's the, I think, endeavor the company has put in place in terms of the strategy, in terms of greening. And in terms of other efforts, that is in terms of like we are into agri-business. So what I believe is energy is also directly related, as we heard in the previous sessions also. The water conservation is something which can also bring in energy conservation. So that's one aspect, since we are in agri-business also. Sugarcane farmers to the tune of some 2.5 lakh in numbers are associated with us. So through our regular agri awareness practices that we share from time to time with these farmers, and we have a flagship program by the name of Meetha Sona, which has created lot of awareness. And it has, over the last 7 years, not only resulted in energy saving, but the water saving to the tune of some 900 billion liters of water. So that way, it has not only increased through these agri practices the productivity of the farmers, but at the same time their income generation also. As we move, I think I am going to share further as we move, but I think this is something, the message is the water saved also is something which can really help us in saving energy. So that way it really helps us that the challenges are ahead, but being in chemical sector, which is hard to abate, since we are into these different verticals, the energy is something which needs to be further reduced in terms of greening, which is a challenge that in the times to come, the technologies and other things as these are getting developed, and also affordability and availability. As we talked about in terms of biomass, that's something, a challenge in the sites we operate. The availability of this biomass is something which is being looked at, that how this can be maximized in terms of its availability. But at the same time, renewable energy is also looked at for electrification purpose also. That is something which is important for any chemical industry, which is very hard to abate. But certainly this electrification is something which can be looked from its availability as well as affordability in the times to come, so that it can also be used for heating purposes also. for various chemical processes that are carried out in any chemical industry. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Yeah, it's started. I think they're switching it on. Thank you, Mr. Sharma. Thanks for your perspectives. Now I'll move on to Mr. Singh. I think from your perspective, I think being a fairly large operator and provider of energy, how are you seeing the overall development of the renewable market? The numbers are quite large that we are targeting even going forward. How do you see things really evolving, and what are some of the challenges that we are facing, and if you can just throw some light on that.
Yeah, thanks Rahul, and a very good morning to all of you. Renewable energy as a grid-connected source of power, it has evolved, if you look at the last 15 years of history, driven by two things. One was the regulation, starting from Jawaharlal Nehru solar mission to the latest PLI system that we are in. And secondly, it was the cost of input. The cost of polysilicon, which drives the cost of module, it has dropped from something like $160 to almost $15 a kg. And these two aspects help the solar power at least to reach a grid parity in around 2021. 2021 is when these renewable energies achieved a grid parity. Going forward, we have, if we talk about making the grid zero carbon, it's a huge challenge. There's a long way to go. In the last 10 years, the carbon intensity of the grid has come down something like 950 grams a unit to around 710 grams a unit. And if we have to move further, there's a lot of investment required, a lot of innovation required, not only in the generation side, but also into transmission and distribution side. And when I say transmission and distribution, it includes storage, because renewables by nature are intermittent, and for providing round-the-clock energy security, you need those kind of solutions. The future looks promising. We expect the green hydrogen cost to come down below $1 a kg in the next 3 to 4 years. Perhaps that will be a game changer, because you will not require so much of transmission system, because once we started more and more renewable into the grid, from the pooling stations to the load centers, we used to call N-1 connectivity. That is, even if you have one circuit out, you should be able to transfer the load. With more and more renewable, we are talking about N-2 or even N-3. And then for connecting those through green corridors, and then which requires a large land, right-of-ways, and then a lot of other issues related to higher transmission of very ultra-high voltage lines. On distribution side also, there is a lot of things to be done. Samir already spoke about it, efficiency and all. So there is a positive step taken. We are now getting into the regime where smart meters will be coming for demand-side management. And as we speak today, we are one of the largest implementers of smart meters across Mumbai. And so I believe a lot of things have happened, but still a lot of things are to be done. And when I talk about the company that I represent, we are into all three segments of grid-connected load, generation, transmission, as well as distribution. We have almost 8.3 gigawatt of renewable capacity on the generation side. On the transmission side, almost 19,000 circuit kilometers of ultra-high voltage lines and 52,000 MVA of transformation capacity. On distribution, we have distribution license for the city of Mumbai. And as we speak, the city of Mumbai gets 38% of power from renewable sources. So that's the kind of transformation we have brought. In the last 4 to 5 years, when we took this company up, it was 3%. From 3%, it is 38% as of now. And we have given the customers of Mumbai a choice that they can have 100% renewable power. We will directly source renewable power for them and then provide them CRs in their favor, so that they can claim carbon credit. So that's over and above the 38% that we distribute in Mumbai. So that's from my side on a generation side.
Yeah, sir, just to add on, I think clearly, what we see a lot from a lot of our, players in the industry, I think availability of a round-the-clock solution from a renewable standpoint, that is one key issue that most people face. So how do you see that being available going forward, and what are the potential solutions you see there, given the battery cost?
The storage solutions are available as of now, but the costs are a bit prohibitive. If we talk about battery storage, you get back almost 89% of the power back into the grid. But the cost of getting that power back into the grid is more than 8 to 9 rupees per unit. For a country like India, where we have a lot of water resources, pump storage is a solution where the government as well as a lot of companies are working on. In case of pump storage, you get almost 80% of the energy back into the grid. And the additional storage cost that you get is almost 3 to 4 rupees per unit. In fact, the last bidding that happened, where including the cost of electricity, the tariffs are almost 6 to 7 rupees per unit. But again, pump storage needs a lot of investment. And then you have to identify water sources where you can do. Then there are many systems on stream, off stream, off loop, in loop, where your both upper and lower reservoirs are off the grid or off the river. But it again needs a lot of statutory clearance process because it involves river valley projects. And then you have a lot of time period to construct it. Typically, 1000 megawatt pump storage projects requires almost 36 months of construction. So that's the investment and time that we are talking about. But definitely, in future, I believe once the green hydrogen becomes the price that we are talking about, less than $1 a kg, that will not require or that will not put a lot of pressure on the grid, as well as it can be available as a source of energy to hard to abate sectors for decarbonization. And then typically what is happening is most of the renewable energy plants are in the arid regions and away from the load centers. So green hydrogen will solve a lot of problems related to transmission also.
Sure, thanks. Mr. Rahman, just wanted your perspectives from a technology standpoint. I think another key issue with renewables that we see is integration within the grid, and it requires there seem to be a lot of challenges in grid management, and also there is also clearly as was spoken earlier, smart metering is also a very important element. So just wanted your perspectives on how some of these initiatives are moving and how the technology is really shaping up, and are we ready in this?
Yeah, thank you. I would start, there was a question, what's renewable energy? Just many of you already know that's basically from the solar, wind or hydroelectric sources, electrical energy. I would start with prosumer end. Many of you might be knowing what is prosumer, but many of you are already prosumer or going to be prosumer of energy. It's all about not just consuming energy, but also producing or providing energy. And as individual, in future, many of us will also have the solar rooftop. So having the renewable energy at home directly. Many of the communities, complexes, residential complexes, and the offices, buildings, and the factories, you're going to have more and more rooftop solar. Then that's the renewable energy you are getting directly. But that's not sufficient, whether it is for the household or for the community or city, town. That's why we need renewable energy from outside the city, or maybe you go out of the city within the state. And just to give a perspective of Karnataka, we know that as country we have the target of 50% renewable energy coming from energy coming from renewable sources, 50% by 2030. That's 500 gigawatts of energy. that target is for 2030, but Karnataka has already achieved this target of 50%, more than 50% of energy from renewable sources in 2021 itself. The reason, of course, is a lot of hydroelectric projects, plants, but also initiatives like Pavagada, which was the world's largest solar plant when it started. Of course, now it is in the top 3. So you go out of the city, then within the state you find places where you can have the large solar plants, and that way we can have more and more renewable energy in the grid. And connecting that to the transmission system, distribution system within the state is of course one challenge, because it looks very simple that you have wires, going and connecting, but those wires, they carry electrons and energy in that, and that is driven by the millisecond. I mean, we call it sine wave, 50 hertz sine wave, so millisecond, 20 millisecond is what it counts. So any demand and supply gap in that 20 millisecond, 1 millisecond is like 1,000th part of a second. So that can create tripping of a circuit, I mean, you might have seen, and cascaded tripping of the lines, and finally it may lead to blackout. I think that's why the demand and supply gap in terms of renewable, which is more intermittent. I mean, you can't have them predicted so easily. And also controlling of course you can control on the lower side, but not on the higher side. Then you go out of the state, and then you have large solar plants like Adani also, they are setting up, and they are being set up in regions. I just refer to Mr. Shah's comment that when we set up solar plants, I think we also need to see that it's not, on the agricultural land where we have. So that's why in the country, and we are blessed that we have deserts, we have mountains, we have areas where there is no population, no cultivation. So we can use. So, for example, government has already planned for Leh Ladakh area, huge potential of renewable energy and also wind, and already started. Tens of gigawatts of renewable energy is going to be produced there. But the challenge is, how do you deliver, evacuate the power, collect the power there, and then deliver it to the load center. And then in Leh Ladakh, of course, there are very small requirement of power. I think there the technology plays a role, and not just putting a transmission line and delivering the power, because it'll disturb the grid, because it's something intermittent power. And then again, as I said, it has to be controlled in real time. That's why Hitachi Energy, we are more than 140 years old company, started with electrical energy, a lot of technologies we developed. We use technology, something called HVDC, high voltage DC current. So normally it is AC, but HVDC line, where it uses power electronics. I mean, the electronics, what we see normally at household or domestic appliances, like 10 volt or 100 volt. And current is like, milliampere or ampere, 2 ampere, 3 ampere, like that. But this HVDC technology is basically on power electronics, which is 800,000 volts, 800 kV, 10 kiloamperes, like 10,000 kiloamperes basically. These type of current they have to sustain, and then you have to have the control of the electronics cooling. So the HVDC technology is very niche technology. And these HVDC technology is used for long distance power transfer, like from Leh Ladakh to Kaithal in Haryana. Tens of gigawatts of power you have to transfer. And you also have to have the right of way and less environmental footprint. You might have seen transmission line, going through the hills, forest, and you have to cut the trees and all. But this HVDC takes less footprint, so you save environment there. At the same time, this provides better control of the power supply, demand and supply gap, and there is no human intervention, possible there, because as I said, 50, hertz, 20 milliseconds. So nobody can actually react to that. It has to be automatic control. That's why the power system, energy system, especially electric energy system, it has been the earliest developers of electronic software-based controls, right from 60s, 70s, and right from the invention of the computers. I think that was also one of the motivation of the mainframe computer, parallel processing, because to solve this power system problem. So these technologies are being used to transfer evacuate the power, deliver, and other examples I see that in our country, we used to have Northeast Agra, which is already commissioned, delivering 6 gigawatt of power from Northeast, where we have a lot of hydroelectric electrical energy produced, to the center of the country like Agra. So Northeast Agra, it's about 1,500 kilometers of HVDC line, and with intermediate point, we call it multi-terminal HVDC, and that's the first one in the world. We as Hitachi, ABB earlier, we delivered that technology. But subsequently what happened, we also have Raigad, center of the country, to Pugalur. The motivation, so the first motivation, Northeast Agra, was that you transmit the hydroelectric power from northeast to the center of the country so that you can put it in the grid. And the second, Raigad Pugalur, was that Raigad is having all these thermal energy, a lot of thermal plants there. But Pugalur on the south, we have a lot of wind potential, so a lot of wind generation available. So how do you have the transfer of power? When you have more wind power, you can transfer the power from Raigad, Pugalur to Raigad, and then when you have less of power here, wind power, then you. And then I think this is going, and we have now the new projects coming where Kutch, gigawatts of, tens of gigawatts of power being set up, Adani, Reliance, they're setting up there. From there, transferring the power using the technology, and also Rajasthan deserts. And in future, it's going to be also offshore wind. In the sea, you will have the windmills, but then you have to also connect those windmills with subsea cables, so there we are using HVDC technology. I think the technologies are there in terms of evacuating the renewable power, large power, whether it is Himalayas, Leh Ladakh, Kutch, deserts of Rajasthan, or offshore, in the sea, in the Arabian Sea or in the Bay of Bengal. The technologies are there, and also the technology for automating this, connecting. So we should be proud that India, we have the largest synchronous grid in the world. That means all the sources of energy, loads, they are all connected, all the state, regional grids, they are connected, and then they're working, very reliably. Technologies are there, and also the renewable energy cost is going to come down. I mean, by 2030, the projection is that it will be less than 2 rupee per unit, 1.9 rupee Niti Aayog has proposed. So that way the cost of energy will be there, but I think the technology to evacuate the power and make the grid stable needs some investment. I think very happy to hear from Mr. Shah about how they are funding the sustainability, green energy. I think that's what is required, because although the cost of energy is less there, but we need to have new business model of capex to opex for the owners, operators of the transmission line and distribution system to have these technologies, and also have the renewable energy available to the consumers, including the electric vehicles we are talking about, although we are using electricity, but the next demand will be that the electricity should be the green electricity, and of course the hydrogen, green hydrogen, which is produced from the renewable energy sources, so we call it hydrogen power. And that same green hydrogen can be used for the electric vehicles, can be used for storing the energy as fuel cell, hydrogen-based fuel cell. And it's also can be used, the hydrogen can be used in the process plants, the steel making, the gas, oil and gas, petrochemicals. You talked about how much carbon they are burning or maybe emitting. So that way we can make it green from the source, from the renewable energy to the process, to the vehicles, to the grid, back again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sharma, a couple of questions here. I think financing is one key element in this entire process, especially when one is looking at more deeper solutions which are a little bit more still on the expensive side and have not achieved scale. So how are you seeing the financing environment there? And we keep hearing the role of, blended finance, etc. So do you really see progress there? And maybe, would request some of the other speakers also to share their views.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all investing companies now are looking into ESG performance of the companies. Just to give you an example, recently we also have an agreement with HSBC. We have gone for some green funding also. So that's something which is now very much visible in every business now. The investing companies are not only looking at how these ESG initiatives are creating value in terms of the business sustainability. That is not on short term, but it's a long term business sustainability that is being looked by these investing companies. Recently, I come across one article by McKinsey, whereby it is mentioned that internationally, 80% of the investing companies are looking into now ESG performance while funding any projects which are coming up. That's something which is now inevitable, and you could see this trend across the globe now. And in the times to come, I think it is also gearing up in terms of reporting by various companies in terms of their ESG performance, which is also picking up now in terms of how companies are performing not only on annual basis but even on quarterly basis. That is something which also is one thing which is a trend now, is very visible across various businesses.
Yeah, it's showing time's up, but I'll just leave one last point with everyone. Maybe if anyone else has some perspectives on the availability of capital, and also if there are any policy suggestions, starting with you, Ram.
I'll keep this really brief. I don't have really any inputs on the financing bit because Godrej as a group, we've always been fairly okay on the capital side of things to do our renewable energy projects, not really been looking outside for it. But from a policy perspective, definitely there has to be a lot more congruence between state and central policies, and there has to be consistency. What I mean by consistency is there's too much dynamism in it. A policy that is set in 2025, for example, might go through 3 changes in 3 years, which makes long-term projects quite unviable. And projects which have predictive models of ROIs set for 20 years, suddenly the entire thing collapses because of a new policy change in 2 years' time. So I think more consistency, more congruence between center and state, and fewer barriers to greater adoption. I think the discoms have to be taken along as well, because currently they do suffer quite a bit from this. Rather than making it a discoms versus renewables things, we need to find a way to get them on the same page and explore synergies between discoms and private suppliers.
Yeah, I always say that this is like the sustainability energy transition. It has got innovation potential in 3 aspects. One, of course, the technology innovation. Technologies are there. But the second one is very important, business model innovation. I think CapEx to OpEx and how do you monetize it. And the third one is user experience innovation. So how do the user, the consumers of energy, they get the experience in terms of what they are consuming, how much they are saving, and what is the potential. But very important, I mean, the finance point of view, it is available. I think companies like Peak Ventures, I think Mr. Shah talked about, they are available. It's all about how the owners, operators, and policy makers, they can work together to come up with a business model which is sustainable in terms of ROI not just money point of view, that is one element, but the second part is sustainability KPI, what Mr. Shah also talked about the CO2, water, waste. Very important. So we can have the KPIs, we can reference them in terms of absolute value and reference value, and the 4 parameters can be actually analyzed to get the financing and also make it more sustainable.
Sure.
Yeah.
So last word to you.
Yeah, I'll speak from our own experience. We have raised all sorts of green finances, be it green bond, green loan, sustainability linked bonds. Our experience is that in green bond, the capital is available, although not to the tune of what was committed during Paris Agreement, but it is available. You need to have a very robust project with assured ROIs, and then a track record of demonstrating sustainability. When I say track record, like even if all our renewable power plants are renewable by nature itself addresses climate change, at the same time, all of them are water neutral or water positive. All our sites are single-use plastic free, and whatever other kinds of plastic come into our system, they go to cement plants as AFR. All our plants are zero waste to landfill sites. So those are the commitment that we have demonstrated, and we are able to perhaps attract a lot of finance. We still have a lot of appetite, and we are still developing new systems, new processes, so that we are not short of capital in the future.
Sir, any last inputs on the policy front? Anything you would like?
Policy is one thing which has been constantly changing over the last 10, 12 years for renewable energy. As of now, I believe the focus is on tariff-based competitive bidding for the grid-connected part, and then linking it with PLI scheme for manufacturing facility. Like if you bid for a 8 gigawatt renewable PPA, you need to put up at least 2 gigawatt per year of renewable manufacturing facility too. So this shift in policy has happened because of a lot of supply chain constraints which the country faced in the last 3-4 years. Started with COVID, then you have that war, and then now geopolitical relations with some of the country. So a lot of focus is on PLI now, where you invest in manufacturing and then you get PLI, and practically it's a kind of subsidy. And then we believe that a lot of PLI will also come for green hydrogen, especially for electrolyzer manufacturing, for fuel cells. So those policy details are yet to come, but I think there is a lot of talk going on.
Yes, Rahul, just what to add on this policy. Recently, a notification is already in place for these green credits, where not only plantation but also this water conservation. There is already a scheme which is notified by MOEFCC, and at the same time, the framework is under development, where the process of validation and all these credit issuance is in progress. So that way, it will also further enhance renewable in a way that biomass availability, which is a challenge right now, can also be one thing which can be taken care of in the next 5 to 7 years time.
Sure. Thank you to everyone for their insights, and I'm sure it was useful for all the participants. I think this is a long journey. I think and renewables are clearly at the forefront, and a lot more needs to happen from the policy and the capital side, given the kind of funding needs that are there. And from a corporate point of view, at least from our vantage point, I think clearly we see accelerated move there. So really looking forward to this change going forward. So thank you everyone. Thanks for your time.